Hello and welcome to Dice Masters United. I'm Spug.
I'm Ben.
I'm James.
And I'm Peter.
Coming up in this episode,
we're debating what you might think is a straightforward question. Which is the best set in Dice Masters?
Dice Fight is evolving, and we'll be bringing you an update on what is in the pipeline for the Thursday night event over the coming weeks.
And after my recent tooth woes, we have been sent an answer to the question of which Dice Masters character would be best suited to do a root canal.
All that and more in the latest episode of Dice Masters United.
Alright, well, many of you will be aware of the recent Gaming vs. Cancer online tournament, which used a format that limited players to building their teams from any one set in the history of the game, with a few caveats, limitations, and so on. The event was run on the premise of trying to settle which is the strongest set in Dice Masters, so we thought we'd use that as a starting point for a discussion about which is the best set in the game. Now, we're not necessarily talking about the strongest, we're talking about the best. So we're taking into account all factors such as the volume of power cards, how much ramp there is, how playable it is in draft, what new keywords or mechanics the sets bring in, everything that you might consider, maybe even a little bit of artwork. But we don't talk about artwork on a podcast. We are also considering starter sets, part of the gravity feeds that they were released alongside, and also the team packs with campaign boxes. We're basically going to say that's one set. So the AVX starter set, for example, would be considered part of that overall set, but also Orcs War as part of the Warhammer. Thank you, Ben. That's much more like it. Should we try that again?
Sure it is, okay.
But also Orcs.
Wah!
Thank you. As part of the Warhammer set. So we're going to pick out a few highlights and then see if we can come up with our favourite, or more likely just agree to disagree. And we obviously will want to hear your views on this as well. Which is the best set in your opinion and why? Do let us know by getting in touch by using the contact details at the end of the show. So we're going to work through the various IPs and stuff that have been released in Dice Masters over the last few years. We're not going to obviously work through every set because otherwise we'll be here till about Friday morning. Well, so it depends on when you're listening to this, but that will be a long time from where we are now. And so we thought we'd start with D&D. And the reason why we start with D&D is because Jason Whippet Good, congratulations to him, he was the winner of the Gaming vs. Cancer event with a Tomb of Annihilation team, which is obviously part of the D&D set. So the first thing we thought we'd talk about is which is the best D&D set? Who wants to go first? James.
Oof. Actually, just before we get into D&D, on a slightly related tangent, as you mentioned, Orcs Warg, I was thinking we could have a Trollocs Oof and a Murdrol Eek set. But as for the best D&D...
that's a Wheel of Time reference for anyone who's not been following the Amazon Prime show. But anyway, go on, James.
I have absolutely no idea. I have fond memories of the first set. They're all pretty good, really, aren't they? I have fond memories of the first set because that was early doors, and that was my first super rare was Red Dragon. Fair and Under Siege was stronger, but certainly brought Bard to the meta, didn't it?
D-Wiz as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, TOA was packed full of stuff, which I think we'll probably come to in a minute. But the latest one for me doesn't shine as much because I don't know. We were saying before the show, I called it more generic, but it turns out it's actually less generic because they have actual named characters. But for me, that means less than the, talking about Dagny. Who the hell's Dag? I don't know who he is. But if you talk about, dwarves and dragons and stuff like that, for me, that's more interesting. Anyway, so I don't know is the answer to your question.
So you would have liked a character called, Grumpy Bartender.
That would be much better, yeah. I would pay good money. Jimmy, for a character called Grumpy Arse.
He'd probably be more relatable. wouldn't he, James, from your point of view?
I don't know what you mean.
Peter, what are your thoughts on this? Where do you think the strongest D&D set lies?
So I didn't play much with the first two sets, and I do have some cards from those, and mostly the good ones. But Tomb of Annihilation really was very impactful,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of good stuff in there, like with the Ring of Winter and the Yanti.
Ooh,
Some cards that really dominated. Well, I guess it's the same with Bard as well.
Yes.
Mm.
D&D has a history of broken cards.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does indeed. Ben, where are you leaning towards?
I mean, I think all the sets here have broken cards, quote unquote. I think TOA probably does the best job of having more than just, the one or two standout cards. If you look at Whippet Good's team, just to bring it back a little bit, he didn't use Yanti and he didn't use Green Devil Mask, nor any of the Tune characters in that set, apart from the Gold Dragon, which is kind of incidental. Actually, he didn't use that.
What did he
Dragon.
play?
Dragons, Ring of Winter. So he didn't even use the rare Gold Dragon that I used at Canadian Nationals. I mean, all the other WKOs I played with that, and national events I played with that. So he didn't use Gold Dragon rare, Green Devil Mask, or the anti-super rare, or the Pseudo Dragon, and still won this event. So that shows you how kind of like the middle of the pack here was really also really good.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, I mean, some of the cards that you've just mentioned, Ben, I mean, obviously there have been a few very impactful cards on the meta, and Green Devil Mask, because obviously that's the trap whereby it kind of re-rolls all your opponent's characters if there are four or more in the field, and sends anything that doesn't come back as a character to the used pile. Boo, hiss.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, I mean, your anti pure blood super rare was just completely insane.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Which,
I mean, in general, that brings up the attune keyword, which is the first time I think attune came up was in this set. I mean, I know the Storm from Deadpool had the effect.
That's right.
But this was the first time it was keyworded, which, I mean, is a big deal. That's a big keyword and an impactful keyword.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I mean, that super rare, just for anyone who's not familiar with it, is a 2-cost bolt, and it has the attune keyword. But the big thing is it says when Yuan-Ti Pureblood is active, when you purchase an action die, trigger the attune ability of all active character dice. So you could just win by basically buying action dice, which is bonkers, really.
Which is a terrible way to win. Let's So hang on. So he just had he didn't have the rare gold dragon. So what dragons did he have? There was silver, red.
He had a gold dragon, but he had the common uncommon gold dragon, which is a 6-cost breath weapon 2.
Okay.
While gold dragon is active, when an opposing character die uses breath weapon, that breath weapon also deals damage to its controller. And then
it's an interesting choice in a meta where you might not expect other dragons.
And also their characters. Yeah, very interesting. I guess maybe he didn't have the rare?
Maybe. Okay.
Or maybe he preferred the breath weapon being a 2 rather than 3, because obviously, because it means you only have to pay 2 to activate it, don't you, rather than 3.
Yeah, I think he was relying on the silver dragon and the red dragon more.
Yeah.
The silver dragon that reduces other dragons. And then we haven't even mentioned the basic actions, which were pretty good in that set. Equipment on a basic action, which I don't know if had been on the previous set.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool with heavy armor and also the sword one that no one cares about. But Create Food and Water obviously is my favourite.
Yeah, mostly because of the global A, Ben.
Yeah, of course. But actually, the actual action effect itself is pretty good. Lets you draw some psychic dice and prep stuff, which is a nice bit of ramp by itself. Also, bringing back Magic Missile to what was then modern was pretty cool. And the 1-cost improvised weapon basic action.
Yeah, but I mean that was just lethal with blimmin' the Super Rare, because you could buy an action for 1 generic energy, which is like madness.
So yeah, I mean, I think other D&D sets have good cards. I mean, Godcatcher is a standout for the new ones, as well as Yawning Portal. But TOA, I think, did a better job of keeping everything to a not more level playing field. But the standout cards were also backed up by other good power cards, which kind of had a nice way of coming up behind Yanti, which is so dominant. The other cards kind of came up behind once Yanti was banned. The D&D cards were still there, right? Whereas in the past, stuff like Bard, once that kind of got shunted aside, the D&D win conditions didn't see much play.
No.
Yeah, in this you see like Green Devil Mask, the Gold Dragon, obviously, Doppelganger, even Tabaxi Rogue is still a big one we haven't talked about.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then it had a nice draft set as well, aspect with the Common Yanti and the Pirates and the Batiris.
Yeah. And just some of the giants and stuff, wasn't there? They're in there were quite fun, wasn't there? I think there was...
And the dinosaurs as well, which is pretty cool.
With shared art. Check out the shared artwork on my video inspired by Nick. Did you know that the Triceratops and the Allosaurus are from the same picture? Super cool. And it turns out to be well, anyway, no spoilers. Go and watch the video.
Well, James, I didn't know that until I watched your video.
Talking about that, the other keyword we should mention is probably traps.
Oh, yes.
So traps and a tune is pretty massive. So trap is a basic action which kind of, again, it was a little bit like a tune. It came from previously in another card, but the Storm from Deadpool. But like traps were kind of already there, sort of. They already had effects like this, like the kiln, I'm thinking. Where action dice could stay in the field.
Yeah.
But now they had a trigger and it was much clearer, the wording on it for the most part.
Yeah.
That this action could stay in your field, you could cull it from your pool, and then something happened which would trigger it and it would do something.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That was a new thing, wasn't it, at that point? Like you say, there had been some things that did that kind of that achieved that kind of thing, but they actually coined it a trap in D&D. It's only been a keyword that's been used in D&D, hasn't it? It's one of those ones where there haven't been traps in any other sets, but
they need some Batman traps, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, that's that would be fun. I mean, in terms of Trouble in Waterdeep, I mean, obviously we've kind of downplayed that a bit, and James said he doesn't like it because it's too non-generic, but
it's too bloody specific. Flipping names. I don't like names. Just give me classes. I want classes.
That's why he always calls us it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you.
But I mean, it did bring us some big hitters, and not least, one of the major win cons in Modern at the moment in the form of the Godcatcher.
I mean, I find that the campaign boxes in general and why they're not the best sets is I'm not a massive fan of that format. I think it takes away one of the big selling points of this game, which is draft.
Right.
And the campaign boxes with the team packs, they feel a little bit separate for me, and as a result, they're not quite as conjoined as I want them to be.
But there are some good things in there. I mean, like you've got obviously Yawning Portal, which is a nice little form of ramp or character reduction, depending on which one you choose to use. There's Gazer, which has become really common, hasn't it, in the modern meta now. Even things like Istrid Horn is quite widely used. Grell has been, fairly commonly seen.
Scraping the barrel now. Intellect Devourer Global.
Intellect Devourer, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So are we a crowning Tomb of Annihilation? It seems like people are fairly unanimous in between.
I mean, that would be mine.
Surprising.
Yeah.
Tomb of Annihilation.
Unusual. I can go with that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, while we're on D&D, should we round up the others before we get to the two major IPs in the form of Marvel and DC? Like, we thought we'd just bracket everything else under the same banner. So the Warhammer, the Turtles, the WWE, and Yu-Gi-Oh! What do we feel is the strongest set out of this lot, Peter?
Are we talking strongest now?
Best.
Best. Okay. Oof, that is a tough one. I think I might go with Yu-Gi-Oh, because it's the only one that's draftable out of this list.
Yeah.
Draftable out the box. That's you can draft with the generator, but still.
Yu-Gi-Oh is by far the strongest, I would say, but I don't think we can crown it the best just because of the artwork. Not that we want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh my days.
The artwork is atrocious.
Also, numbers on dice, just terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Numbers on dice. I mean, we obviously need to consider that this, I think it's quite widely known that this was the first set they actually produced, and it was the one they were going to put out first, but they decided, I think, probably wisely, that it'd be better to go with an IP that more people are into. So they decided to put AVX out first and use the Marvel intellectual property. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Was apparently the set that was developed first. So it's got a lot of the kind of functions that we are familiar with, but worded in very peculiar ways, and it all just became a bit messy, didn't it, in terms of how some of these things were expressed, because, you know, game mechanics kind of evolved, and the notion of how the game was actually going to be played crystallized a bit more as people got more into the game and worked out that actually if you do this, you can't do that, and so on and so forth. So the wording on some of these cards is not particularly clear at best.
No, it has continuous as a keyword for the first time.
Yeah, that's true. It does.
And fusion, the big popular keyword fusion.
Fusion is the
Can't get
best.
enough of that.
If you can pull it off, it's awesome.
It's good, but yeah.
What does it mean, Peter? What does it mean?
Fusion means that you have to KO 2 characters with that affiliation. I don't know what it's called. With the claw thingy.
The claw.
Fusion. The fusion affiliation. And then you get to you get a giant dragon for free, and you can put it in your prep area.
1,000 Island Dragon at that.
1,000 Island Dragon, yes.
And how many characters are there? How many different characters are there with the fusion affiliation?
Exactly 2.
Brilliant. Is it Baby Dragon and Time Wizard?
Yeah, because
Exactly.
Baby Dragon Time Wizard did and aged up,
And then it became a huge dragon.
1,000 dragon.
Oh, I see. Is that something like the other thing, which is not Dice Masters? What's that? Where people hunt for stuff and they
Quarriors?
come on. No,
You mean?
bloody
No.
hell! It's
Oh,
like
you
the
mean
most popular thing in the world.
Pokemon?
Monster Hunter.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
Pokemon, I think.
Evolution.
Is that what I'm talking
yeah.
about? Yeah. That's-
They evolve with Pokemon. I've actually been playing a bit of Pokemon, the trading card game, recently. It's good fun.
okay.
You traitor. You
Speaking of treachery, I'm going to vote for WWE. Not because of Becky, or not exclusively because of Becky, but because I thought that I would thoroughly hate it, and I don't. and for that reason, it's like the most surprisingly totally okay, in spite of the photos of wrestlers. I actually quite like it. I've grown quite fond of it over time. I'm not sure how many of them I could name, but Lita I enjoy, for example. And, I've learnt the names of some wrestlers. And I've learnt that, John Cena is pronounced Cena and not Senna, which is what it would be in Slovak. And stuff like that. So I'm going with W. I think that the production was quite well done, given what it is. And I really don't really hate the photos in spite of myself. So, well done.
I mean, I think it's definitely true for me that when I watched Fighting with My Family, I actually knew some of the so-called superstars that are in it, which I definitely wouldn't have done otherwise. So that was
educational as well, more so than more usefully than Yu-Gi-Oh! Perhaps.
But even so, I know what you mean in terms of it maybe is less jarring than everybody thought it was going to be, because everybody suddenly was like, there's going to be photos of people and they're going to have long hair and sweaty big muscles and all sorts of stuff that we don't like seeing. But it hasn't. It just seems to have been, okay, well, that's fine. You've got that on your team and you've got
integrated
someone,
quite nicely.
Yeah, drawing Superman. But I mean, if you try to think about it too much, then it does get a bit ridiculous. The fact that Becky Lynch has basically got the same stats as Hulk is just completely bonkers.
Another thing in its favour, I suppose, is the keyword tag out, which is, I think, a fairly good keyword to have. It's an interesting keyword to have. I don't know. It's not been as impactful as some of the other keywords we've talked about, but it's a nice addition.
Just speaking of keywords, sorry, on a point of order, I think that Yu-Gi-Oh! Didn't actually have continuous until it was errated to have continuous. Like Ring of Magnetism didn't bear that word as far as
Oh, good catch, James. You prevented a flood of complaints there.
A torrent of email.
Okay, so James, you're voting WWE basically because it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Basically, that's for you. I mean, I feel like I definitely can see what Peter says in terms of being drawn towards Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of the kind of draft element and the fact that it has been fun to open packs and draft Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, I kind of think that as a standalone set, the Warhammer stuff is quite good, even though it's been almost criminally neglected in broader play. It's got some good kind of inset synergy, I think, with the various, with the Orcs War and all that stuff, and the Space Wolves and the big blue marine dudes and all that other stuff that plays together very nicely.
I do think if you're going to give it to a group of players, if you were going to give one set to a group of players and be like, this set is enough for you guys to have some fun with, I do think actually 40k would be good because there's 4 distinct factions and they all sort of work, which is more than any other set.
Yeah.
But it's just not meta impactful enough for me to.
Well, that is the downside, yeah. But I think I'm gonna say, for me, I'm gonna stick my neck out and say So I nearly called it WD-40. Warhammer, I'm gonna call it. I think is maybe just edges it simply because I can't bring myself to say WWE.
It's got some of the best names in Dice Masters as well, isn't it?
Well,
I think it would have been my second choice for sure, but there's lots of words like fetid and festering, I think, must be in there as well. I mean, okay, I'll definitely give that a vote.
Dreadnought with 2 spellings.
Indeed. Ben, where do your allegiances lie in this sense?
None of these best sets, no.
None of the above. You abstain.
Yu-Gi-Oh! If I had to pick, but the pictures are so bad.
Okay.
The turtles, maybe if it was combined, the 2 turtle boxes, they would be. If you put 2 sets together, that might be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they just don't have enough stuff in them, do they, really, collectively, I don't think. I mean, they were. Well, that was the original Turtles campaign box was the first campaign box, wasn't it? And obviously it didn't come with an associated team pack, so it had far fewer cards and dice than we would have in a kind of expansion that has, of that ilk now. So it did bring something new, but it didn't. The Turtles were just a little bit too expensive, and it didn't quite all work out, did it? So you're abstaining. We're all disagreeing, aren't we, on this one?
Yeah, none of these are going to be the best, are they? They're not going to.
No. Okay, let's move on to DC, shall we then? For the moment, Ben, do you have a preferred DC best set?
I mean, I think the problem with DC for me is that I don't care about any of the IP.
Any of them?
Not any of them at all. None of the DC really. So I don't have a particular place in my heart for them. If I think about some of my favourite cards, I don't think any of them are particularly from any of the DC sets.
Scarecrow, come on. You like
Scarecrow, yeah, Rarecrow. From World's Finest, and I think probably that's where my eye is most drawn towards. In terms of what I think the best set overall is, World's Finest probably is up there. Just because it had so many kind of, again, it didn't, I don't think it necessarily had the big mega stars, but I think there was a lot in the kind of B tier.
Yeah.
B. Ultraman. Come on.
Yeah, Ultraman might be up there. Alfred, Batgirl, You have Kryptonite, obviously. Doomsday was really good. The Bat family in general, I think, saw their first start here.
Mm-hmm.
Rare Bruce.
Oracle.
Yeah, I mean, I hate that. I really dislike that whole team. But yeah, it was good. And it's getting better. I feel like the more people play it, the more people... It appeared quite a lot in the Gaming vs. Cancer, or at least a couple of teams, I think. Which is surprising.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The Dick Grayson was really cool to play around with. So there's
brought back
good stuff.
The Ant-Man Flip Global was on Kal-El after an absence.
And then, obviously, I think probably the most impactful card is Oracle.
Oh,
Ultraman.
boo. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. I think it's just a very B set for me, but a good set overall. Draft was good for it. The art generally was quite good for it. So yeah, it's a decent...
Yeah. I always like the rare Nightwing as well. When Nightwing attacks, deal 4 damage divided as you choose among up to 4 target opposing character types. I always thought he was really cool.
I don't think anyone's going to dislike this set, are they? This is a crowd pleaser generally, with maybe being a standout.
Yeah.
I think that seems fair.
I think that's a fair point. I mean, and there's some other stuff. Doomsday was good, and you've obviously got Superman. You can do Super Jimmy stuff, can't you? With that, and you've got Lois Lane.
If you add on a relevant pack, Superman and Wonder Woman.
Oh, of course. Apologies.
Woman,
yes. Yeah. You can't do Super Jimmy. Then I take it all back. Thank you. Oh, it's a terrible set. I hate it.
I mean, I will say where this set kind of falls down is on keywords. Vengeance
And globals. There's not that many of them, in fact.
A trusted friend is an interesting global, right? The making friends or bat friends is kind of a cool thematic ability.
Like Bane had force attack, I guess.
Yeah. But the keywords, Iron Will, was this the first set Iron Will was in? Which was okay, fine, whatever. And Revenge, what are they called? Vengeance. I don't think seen a recurrence since then.
No, probably not.
No.
I mean, there have been quite a few examples, haven't there, of cards, of keywords like that have just appeared in one set and never come back again, which I always think is a bit of a shame. I like it when you get stuff that actually reappears again, because otherwise it feels like...
I do, but I don't particularly... I'm not crying out for Vengeance to come back.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You're not seeking vengeance, then.
I mean, I am, but that's a different matter.
Yeah, that has to wait until at least midnight. And then... excellent. All right, well, what other DC sets do we like? Peter von der Velde, what do you pick out?
It's difficult. I mean, the Green Arrow and the Flash had some good stuff in it. It introduced the sidekick fixers, which was a big thing.
Yeah.
It introduced foil cards.
Yep.
Which is a big thing to some people. There was some, and it had Grodd.
Yeah, that's a win in my book.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was I think it's underrated set.
It also had Diggle. Let's not forget.
Yeah, Diggle.
It also introduced. I mean, I'm a bit obsessed with keywords at this point, but Impulse and Cross Pulse.
Not a huge fan of those. Outside of Katana, maybe was that?
Yeah.
But Impulse is actually a pretty cool ability, which has come back, which is one of the things that has kind of lasted.
Yeah, they even recoded Big Entrance, didn't they, using that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. You had Cold Gun as well, which is
Cold Gun was great, and Star Labs.
Star Labs Global.
Yeah, let's not forget the Cosmic Treadmill.
Who would? How can we, James?
This was it did have Chalkboard. So Chalkboard.
I was about to mention that. Yeah.
Chalkboard.
Yeah, those two globals are pretty big, as well as, global wise, this was a pretty good set.
It was.
I like that set. It's a good one.
Pay a shield. The first die you purchase this turn is added to your prep area instead of your use pile. That was a very commonly used
It's actually
global,
also a
wasn't
pretty
it?
interesting one for draft. They had a few unblockable characters, which kind of worked based on them having
that
double
bow shooting guy.
affiliations.
It also had King Shark, right?
King Shark,
Yes,
the
yes.
Wizard,
Yeah.
as well as kind of big hitters like Firestorm was pretty good. There's a few Batgirls which are interesting. So it definitely was playable in draft and pretty decent.
Common static in draft was a pain in the bum.
Yeah, exactly. Mid-range kind of things. Lots of stuff for other sets. Lots of affiliations.
Yeah, Merlin, wasn't it? Merlin was the one
Merlin
who
was Weather Wizard. I
can only be blocked by crossover dice, which is
Yeah.
Oh, and the other Grodd as well. Yeah,
Grodd.
that's the Grodd cannon, the one also unblockable, right? And you get your
Surprise
PXG
Grodd.
on and just throw Grodds at people.
I mean, unblockable is very good because it means an end to the draft. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
some draft games will never end unless there's a way to win.
yeah, that is true. That is true.
Expensive unblockable, I think, is good because it means you have to build
Yeah.
up to it. Not like Yanti cheap unblockable fully.
Yeah. James, do you lean towards a particular favourite DC set? Or I'm not saying favourite. I'm saying best. Best is the word we're using. What's the best? What is the best DC set, James?
I don't know. As I think perhaps is the case with all of us, I have very little relationship with DC. We are slightly unbalanced as a podcast. In that respect.
We are. That's not the only. That's not the only area we're unbalanced in. But let's not get into that.
There are many, aren't there?
Yeah.
Shoe size.
I struggle with DC. I do have a soft spot for Green Arrow and the Flash, even though the characters mean almost nothing to me, most of them. I would say that's in the middle. The sets that mean absolutely nothing. Everybody likes War of Light, and I can see what they like about it. I like what's the word, tribal nature of it, and the Lantern Ring stuff. If I actually bothered to read it, Darkest Night and all that probably would be great. But I can't get into it because of Green Lantern and the very few bits of Green Lantern that I've seen. I don't know where I've seen them, but some
Ryan
terrible
Reynolds.
films, I think. Probably
Ryan Reynolds, yeah.
Just creating fists and fans and stuff made from green light. It's just I can't bear it. It sums up. Oh no. Anyway, so War of Light not really for me. The stuff with Batman in, I have more of a relationship with, so I think probably I could get on with either World's Finest or indeed Batman. That Batman set was all right, except Firefly was a pain in the butt. Didn't really like that. That had Darkseid in, that was cool.
Yes.
And a bit more Teen Titans, I think, didn't it? Was there some Teen Titans?
Had Hawk Dove.
Yeah.
I think War of Light. War of Light was a very fun set to not actually play the draft games, but actually physically pick your cards. Was interesting because you could kind of choose the color of lantern and start collecting those, which made it fun. And I think maybe this has the biggest meta impactful cards. Lantern Ring,
Guy
Vicious
Gardner.
Struggle, and Guy Gardner.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I like Vicious Struggle. I like Vicious Struggle.
I mean, I don't like any of those win conditions, so I'm not. Yeah, let's not. But yeah, it was a bit of a mess of a set, wasn't it? It didn't feel.
Well, I thought the iconography. I think the iconography in the lanterns themselves was just really confusing. Like you have all different color lanterns, but then there was like a symbol that meant all lanterns. And so it says if you have a lantern, but does that mean a certain color lantern or is that any lantern? I can't remember. What does that picture mean? And then you have to go kind of fumbling for the rule book to find out what that particular symbol meant. So I thought that was a bit untidy, to say the least.
Apparently, you don't even know what an emotional conduit is. Good
No,
Lord.
I don't.
Which, neither do I, but it appears on Lantern Battery and Lantern Ring, and it means something. I feel an affinity for anything which is an emotional conduit, being the kind of guy that I am.
Clearly.
I think the opposite is true, I think, is what I said about the draft for Batman. I think the actual games of Batman were fun to play if you could kind of avoid someone getting all 4 Fireflies. There was a couple of Fireflies, but everyone took it as their first pick, and there was a bunch of interesting stuff, which was kind of like the new gods were kind of fun if you got a bunch of them. The Catwoman flippy stuff was interesting. And the introduction of flip cards in general was kind of cool. Then you also had Huntress, which is interesting. The Paradigms, which are kind of fun. The flip cards were a few.
The flip cards were a total nightmare for anybody who used to like to keep their things in nicely ordered binders, because you can't put the cards back to back because they're double sided. It's like no, I've got to buy twice as many blooming ring binders now.
It's
really is that a thing? Blind.
What, doing both sets and double of each of them? No. It's a very complicated set to teach new players. I will say that. I think DC in general leans towards that more complicated side of things. Yeah. I don't know whether that's because they think DC fans are more sophisticated people, or they just like complicated, pointless, dark stories for no reason.
Can I just briefly diss the first Justice League set, because the number of questions that come up in Discord and Facebook, people asking about the wording of the early, Justice cards, constantly referring to what are now called character dice, for example, as characters, and it's just so confusing, and it keeps coming back to bite them, because people still because they're fun characters, right? People like them. And they just have to keep asking about these cards because they're just not at all clear. So I hate it, and I would like to give a downvote to that set.
Well, thanks, James. I think for me, I'm going to say that I think the Justice set is the best DC set. And the reason is because it has got a load of really great and meta impactful cards that were introduced in there. I mean, Clayface, probably the biggest of those, with his global pay a mask once per turn. You may take a die from your use pile and add it to your reserve pool on any energy face. That's been huge and continues to be really important. It's got loads of other things like the energy field, which has the kind of the pullback global, energy field, which is the spin up and spin down global, which obviously for a while comboed very nicely with the Atom, who used to do damage when you spun him up. But then they vetoed that, so you couldn't do that anymore, which is a bit of a shame. But then there's all other things, like it has Green Lantern Human, which is a decent win con. It's got the Poison Ivy. I can't remember the
Criminal Because of Love.
Criminal Because of Love. That's right. Yeah. So you KO something and then you do damage to your opponent and all their characters equivalent to their level. There's obviously Parasite, which adds his attack, his stats to other characters when they attack, and it's obviously got Static Field, remove target attacking character die from combat. There's loads of really great stuff there.
Yellow Lantern Ring, the Weaponer's Ring, which gives all your character dice in the reserve pool Intimidate.
Which is really good. So I think it's got loads of great stuff in there, and I think, and then you can build like nice thematic teams. Like you can do a villain team if you want with Black Manta, or you can do a really great Justice League team with some of the Justice League characters that are there as well. You've got Aquaman, you've got Batman, you've got all of the favourites that are there, and you can do some really cool stuff. So I mean, for me, I feel like Justice kind of edges it, and you've got Atlantis as well, of course, in the team pack. The with the various versions of that, which has got the nice ramping global, and also the action die that enables you to store stuff up for the next turn.
A bit like the Warhammer 40k stuff. I think this has two clear teams that you can build with it. So if there's two people interested in the game, this might be one where someone can be Justice League, someone can be villains. There's lots to tinker with there. It also has a very consistent look in the artwork. It's all Alex Ross art. So it does look good as a production overall. Which is a bonus. And of course, Strike, I think, is a pretty decent keyword as well. A bit complicated.
Oh, that's a new one,
But it's the
Ben is keyword man today.
I know. That's what we said we were going to do. Best is overall, right? Talking which, we didn't mention the Retaliation was in Justice League, which is a big bonus for that.
Doesn't offset the terribleness of it, though.
No, but there was some good cards in Justice League. But anyway, no, I think Justice is a good shout. I definitely think it loses marks because Doom Patrol is so bad. And Mystics don't add a ton to the kind of core box. I was let down by Metal. If something like the Zatanna, which gave all your Mystics a tune, or something like the Phantom Stranger had kind of got up to the level of like Green Devil Mask or something in the meta, this might have been the one for me.
Yeah, I feel like every time you said like a ton of good things and just loads of stuff, I felt like calling you out. And then I was looking through it. There are actually some quite good things. Yeah, I wouldn't push it too far, but not enough to call you out, but not enough to give you a ringing endorsement either.
That's very good of you, James. So anyway, what are we plumping for? I'm plumping for Justice. Peter, your vote goes to
Green Arrow and the Flash.
Oh yeah, Ben.
Because of the beginnings of the foil cards, I'm gonna go for Green Arrow and Flash as well.
Oh right, okay.
Oof, controversial.
James.
Well, I'll go for World's Finest. Sorry, but I can fully support Green Arrow and the Flash as well. But although I'd be surprised if we recommended that as the best DC.
Yeah.
World's Finest then.
World's Finest. Yeah, I'll flip flop as well back to World's Finest.
Well, I'm sticking with Justice. So that's that. That's DC. We're all totally disagreed on that one. And shall we move to Marvel? This is obviously way going to be the hardest, and we certainly do not have a time to do much more than scratch the surface on Marvel because there's so many more sets than there are of anything else. In fact, are there more Marvel sets than everything else put together? Basically,
no, not quite.
Then there are atoms in the universe.
There are more Marvel movies than there are atoms in the universe now. But yes, the least said about the latest one, the better. I would say.
They're starting to get worse as well, aren't they?
Shang-Chi was awesome.
Yeah, Shang-Chi was fantastic. It was
a good first half.
I would agree with that, but Trevor and Morris carried the entire film. So, yeah.
Yes, they were great. But back to our discussion. Who wants to go first? What are we going to pick out on the Marvel front? Because obviously there's a bunch of different sets that we could go for here. Ben, what are you leaning towards in front of your favourite?
Me and Peter could discuss what we played for Gaming vs. Cancer, I suppose.
What did you do?
Yeah. So I played UXM, which is Uncanny X-Men, which is the second set. Which obviously I chose because it had PXG.
For no other reason. For sure.
Yeah.
Basically,
he was the only card on your team.
Almost. And then one of the big problems, and probably why I wouldn't vote it as the best set, is because outside of PXG, the win conditions are not brilliant. Falcon Recon is the obvious one, which makes all your sidekicks unblockable, which is okay, especially when one of the Professor X gives your characters +1/+1. And also using the transfer power global, which I love, which swaps your character's attack with one of your opponent's character's attack. Is great, but outside of that, you're kind of scratching around trying to find stuff. There is some interesting, fun ideas. The Cerebros are kind of cool. The fact that they have double energy on all their faces is or on their 3 energy faces is pretty nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, the keyword that was introduced, heroic, is pretty terrible. So outside of the Professor X and Transfer Power Global, I couldn't recommend it as the best. But PSG
Our keyword correspondent says...
PSG is so good though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
The artwork is not great either for this set. It's a bit all over the place. Some cards look decent. Some cards look much less so.
Scarlet Witch. Just throwing that one out there. That is a mess. It's all fuzzy and horrid. That wasn't a fine moment. But yeah, I'm interested because I reckon most people wouldn't pick out UXM as their best set, and you're obviously hugely skewed by the fact that it's got the Professor X Global in it. I don't feel as if you've really sold the rest of the set to us in a particularly big way.
No, I wouldn't have it better. That's where I'm starting.
That's what you played.
That's my opening gambit to get you guys. I think Peter probably should talk about what he played.
We'll come to Gambit later, shall we? Ha ha. Mm-hmm. Go on, PT. What did you?
That's a different set. Yeah, so I played Guardians of the Galaxy for the tournament.
Yes.
Particularly some infiltrate action. That's a keyword introduced in that set.
Yeah.
Which is good fun, especially with the ricochet that lets Prep die every time you infiltrate.
Yes.
And there's some other good stuff in there, like Madam Web, which makes all your stuff basically unblockable because you can pay 2 when she attacks, and then everything has to block her. Pairs very well with Infiltrate because Infiltrate lets you pull back unblocked infiltrators and deal your opponent 1 damage.
Yeah.
And then there's also Dum Dugan, who gets huge if you have a couple of sidekicks out. So there's plenty of ways to do a lot of damage. Or you can either do chip or you go for the big swing. So yeah, I like that a lot. And also the set introduced like a whole new archetype in Collector Nobby.
Yes. Love it.
And there was the Madam Mask in there that stopped when fielded effects, which was also pretty huge.
Yeah.
Cosmic Cube.
First card to get banned in Standard. So yeah.
Modern.
Yeah, modern. It's called Standard in Magic. It's confusing.
Infiltrate is, of course, it was a new... Is it right? Infiltrate was first seen in Guardians of the Galaxy, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Call Out.
Call Out as well. A very confusing keyword.
It is. When this character die attacks, target character die is the only character die that may block this character die.
They both lasted.
At least they're calling it character die, not character. That's a win.
Yes, nice one, James.
I think that set is ram-packed with great... Like, I won't go into too many details, but just scrolling through it, like at least half of the characters, probably a good 60-70% of the characters and cards, have at least one decent card.
Yeah.
If not more. I like it. Yeah. King Black Bolt is in there as well.
Should I give my rebuttal?
Nowhere. Sorry?
Should I give my rebuttal then?
Go on. Sorry. Before you do, it's got the Hulk dice with that funny grin on them, which is a win.
That Hulk die is also 1/1/1 fielding cost.
I know, that's so good.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so good.
I have fond memories of playing with that Hulk.
Oh, yeah.
No basic action cards.
Oh, right.
Big deal, right?
Yes.
Well, it's not really its own fault, is it?
No. If you're comparing the best sets, do you want to meme us out 2 of the cards on your 10? Global abilities, very, very limited. So in draft play, this could really be annoying. And I don't know how great a draft set it was. Infiltrate and Call Out were very fun.
Yeah.
But Dum Dum was very powerful.
Which set is not dominated by 1 or 2 horrible cards in draft?
Something like Roar of Light, wasn't?
Lantern Ring.
Yeah, but that was a rare. I know, but you can't talk about a rare dominating a draft because it probably wasn't even in the draft.
Well, we drafted it and 2 people got Lantern Ring and dominated. So
some European version of the I don't know about what you do over there.
Okay, but Batman, you've got that bloody Firefly that we mentioned. X-Men, we haven't talked about X-Men. You've got that Morph, right?
Boom, boom.
But Morph was only good if you had, depending on what basic actions you could use, because again, that didn't have its own basic actions.
Yes.
Of course, there's going to be things that are better than others, but I don't know to the extent that Dum Dum was. And the fact that there were no globals meant your energy was very kind of stuck in. I mean, I really like the set. I think
Yeah, I'll give you
set.
that. Give you
There's
that,
no
sure.
great draft either. Sorry, ramp.
Ramp, yeah, that's true.
And especially when you had stuff like the kiln, it can be really, really wally.
Yeah.
In the set.
I mean, the spot was great, wasn't he, with the investigation? The one that whenever you draw and roll a die outside your clear and draw step,
But again,
you draw and roll an
you're
extra
using
die. That's
cards from a different set.
yeah. The investigation, yeah, that didn't count. Good point.
Well, but yeah, if you're gonna draft the set, you actually have to use basic action cards from a different set, so you
do.
can't really hold that against it. I think.
Well, you could. I mean, that is a negative point, right?
I personally would not put too much weight on drafting. Personally, no. I understand that other people like it a lot, but it's not my main criteria. But yeah, fair enough.
So, what gets your vote then, Ben, as the best
Well, should we
Marvel
move on to
set?
the big elephant in the room, I suppose? Amazing Spider-Man introduces ally, has betrayal. Anyway, AVX.
Yeah,
I think AVX is one that most, if you asked what was the best set and they saw it as strongest set, I think a lot of people would go for AVX. And I think the reason we didn't see a lot of it at Gaming vs. Cancer was partially because there was kind of not banned, but it was it was suggested you don't play it by ticketing stuff appropriately.
Oh yeah,
against AVX. But also because a lot of people don't have AVX.
Yeah.
Because it's a very hard set to get. But Black Widow and Green Goblin, super rares, are devastating.
Super strong, yeah.
And then you get to stuff that wasn't played a ton. Venom, were like Nova, Nick Fury Patch.
Hulk.
It's just insane. Loki.
Storm.
Hawkeye was good.
Human Torch.
Storm, Gambit was okay. Doctor Doom, Doc Ock, Deadpool, Cyclops, Colossus.
Yeah.
I mean, these cards are all like forged into the mind of anyone who has played at a competitive level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was just. I mean, I would not put it as the best set because of I think the artwork is terrible.
Yeah.
On some of it looks very dated now.
It does. Yeah.
It's wildly imbalanced towards the starter set, and the draft of this could be awful. Just walls upon walls. But I mean, in a power set, it's the strongest set probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
With maybe one other that we'll get to.
I mean, yeah, I'm a huge AVX fan. Always have been. Original set, first set I played with, love it. So much great stuff in it. I mean, obviously the downside is the kind of downside. It's up to a point is kind of Black Widow and Green Goblin, because obviously in the early days those were so dominant in terms of the competitive arena. And if you didn't have copies of those, which I did not, then you would often struggle because people who had those cards would often have an advantage. So
at least you had an excuse though, so that's
that's true. Yeah, if you can't do well, just make sure you got a good excuse.
It was so wildly different in what you could do as well. Like there was Wolverine, which was like just a +4/+4, smack your opponent in the face, and then the completely opposite side was Human Torch, like. Don't ever attack, just field a sidekick and ping your opponent for 1 damage.
Yeah, or Colossus in the same mold.
Colossus. Then the Colossus was different. I was just like, I want to make a massive wall and just never care anything and just keep everything alive and then just you're going to die.
Yeah.
Or, so many win conditions, so many power win conditions as well.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure that Dr. Octopus really deserves mentioning.
No, I'm just reading characters.
I thought that's what was happening.
Beast, I just read basically, but Beast is really good. I can carry on. Mjolnir, Storm.
Yeah, you haven't even mentioned Hulk, so yeah.
Thor, Hulk.
There is a lot of great stuff in there. I mean, to be fair, I think that's going to get my vote. I'm hugely biased towards that set. And that would be the one that I would pick. What's everybody else going for? Because we'd probably round up this discussion.
I haven't even been asked. How dare you? But I haven't got much to add. I would lend my vote to Guardians of the Galaxy. But I also really have an affinity, and it's not just my favourite set, because if it was that, it would be Age of Ultron, which no one likes. Mighty Thor is pretty. I think there's quite a lot in there as a set. It's got the reprints of the energy, the psychic spinning things. It's got Beta Ray built. Who wouldn't want that? It's got some really awful super rares, but let's not talk about that. But then it's got the Warriors 3, and it's got that horrible sort of female Hulk power of attorney monstrosity.
Oh, yeah.
It's got Kate Bishop, so it's got the Distraction Global Honor character. What else? And Mr. Fix-It, of course, let's not forget.
Yeah.
Your favourite. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But no, I will vote. I will vote with a lot of what Ben says is true, but I'm not too bothered about draft, so I'm voting for Guardians of the Galaxy because it's the only set I got a gravity feed for, and I really enjoyed opening those foil packs. I know it's not about our favourites, but I have emotional attachments.
Yeah, well, I can't pretend that I haven't been swayed by favouritism in this case. Ben, what are you plumping for?
Going to bring up some other ones that need to get mentioned. Sorry.
Go on.
The X-Men Forever.
Yeah, it's good.
Really good.
Yeah.
The Civil War had Intimidate, major keyword. But I think one we should talk about is Avengers Infinity. I got that right? No,
Infinity
Gauntlet.
Infinity Gauntlet.
I got it wrong again. Infinity Gauntlet. Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, Infinity Gauntlet is super good. I mean, obviously the most recent set, the biggest set, isn't it, I think, in terms of highest numbers of cards.
Had the best basic actions, I mean, purposefully the best basic actions because they kind of pruned the best basic actions from other sets.
Yeah.
Has
plus Poker Night.
plus Poker Night.
Yes.
Excellent artwork, generally really well picked out.
Yeah.
A good balance of the two major affiliations, Infinity Watch and the bad guys, basically.
Black Order.
Black Order, yeah, but villains included in that, I think, to make it really sing. So yeah, I think that deserves a mention. You got all the it's kind of like a homebrew of all the best stuff that's come out.
Greatest hits.
The reprint of the Nova. Yeah. No, you don't have a reprint of the Nova, sorry. You have Turk Barrett, you have Thor, which reprint of the Human Torch. Sorry.
God, that Thor, yeah.
Yeah. You have the Spin Down Global for
Spider-Man, Pip the Troll.
Spin Down, Pip the Troll, Drax, Typhoid Mary.
Yeah. All the control.
So I think I would probably go for that as the best set.
Yeah.
Special mention for me for X-Men Forever because it has Danny.
Simple. One simple reason. Yeah. Very good. Peter, what are you going for?
Well, I'm going with Guardians because it's the only set I have a factory set of. So I'm also
very good.
Swayed.
Very good. So you got 2 votes for Guardians. And I mean, I have to say that Infinity Gauntlet probably is the best.
Yeah, probably as strong as
possibly,
but better artwork.
When you balance everything, I mean, we've had a great time drafting that, haven't we? I think when we've done it, that was really cool.
So I think it's very difficult to pick a favourite. There are lots of good ones.
Yeah, it totally is. Well, we need to try to pick a best overall winner from the ones that we've picked out, which is going to be totally impossible. I mean, we
inconceivable.
Inconceivable. We did agree on Team of Annihilation for D&D, but then that was about as far as we got, I think, wasn't it? Is anybody going to want to put something forward as the best set?
Almost. I mean, I don't think you can really change my mind. No, Tomb of Annihilation. I think it has to be Tomb of Annihilation. It stands out for me, I think, because of all these reasons. The power cards in it, the way that kind of it drafts is pretty good. The basic actions are really strong and has the first draft packs. And it won Gaming vs. Cancer. So
yeah, true.
Yeah. I can go with that. That seems fair.
Yeah, I can live with that.
Well, so my vote is irrelevant. So it's 3 against 1, whatever I go, unless I decide to go for Tomb of Annihilation 2. So maybe I should just be a sheep and follow the rest of you. And we are crowning Tomb of Annihilation. So not only did Tomb of Annihilation win the Gamer versus Cancer and turned out to be the strongest individual set in terms of a tournament situation, it has now also been crowned by DM United as the best set. So if you want to get involved with some Dice Masters action and you have no sets whatsoever, then we would heartily recommend hunting down some Tomb of Annihilation, so that you can to start your Dice Masters career. Well, that was a surprise because I thought we would never actually agree on anything. So well done, everybody. So let's round that up there, shall we? What is your favourite set? Do you agree? Is Tomb of Annihilation the best set in Dice Masters so far? Then do let us know by using the contact details at the end of the show. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next segment. All right, James, so we need to talk about Dice Fight. There's been some stuff going on behind the scenes. You've been beavering away with the Thursday night online gaming crew, and you've been hatching some new plans for Dice Fight. Tell us what people need to know about that.
I'm not sure it's quite fair to say that I've been beavering away. Other people have been beavering away on my behalf. Well, due to us sometimes recording on a Thursday and me being a bit distracted with one thing or another, I have taken something of a backseat in... Yeah, maybe. I wasn't going to mention.
We nearly made a whole episode without James mentioning birds.
Sorry.
We do. You had to go and spoil it.
I have taken a bit of a backseat recently, and as I've mentioned, I think in the last two podcasts, Rick and Danny have been doing a sterling job because they were there every week. They were the hardcore of Dice Fight, if you will, and
stalwarts.
The stalwarts, indeed. And I asked them to sort of help me out with it, and they've taken over the sort of the day-to-day or the week-to-week running of it, and they've been doing an extremely good job, and they've gone above and beyond, and in fact planned out the next year of events.
Wow.
Which was amazing, and at some point I might actually sort of write a blog about the sort of different formats that are involved, but just really well done, Danny and Rick, for that, for what you've been doing and what you continue to do. Fantastic. That said, whether I can remember what the actual events are, I know that this week is taking place as we speak, was a really good idea from Rick, which was yes, and we recorded tonight, so we couldn't play in it, but Rick came up with the idea of Modern plus the PXG Global. Which I think is a really nice idea. In conjunction with that, they have inspired me with their industriousness to actually produce something myself for a change. So I have, in return, finally updated the Dice Fight webpage because the calendar on there has been a little bit out of date since the summer, and I've been a little bit lazy on that front. So I have actually now transformed it into, it's like a Google Calendar, basically. It shows entries on a shared Google Calendar, which they are able to update. So I fully believe that will now be kept well up to date because I have no involvement with it. And the next two events, I believe, are the first Thursday of every month is Legacy, and we're now up to 22, I think.
21, the calendar says, but go on.
Is it 21? No, that could be right. So we're approaching the second anniversary of the Legacy, which is something pretty amazing.
Yeah. That is madness,
isn't it? I don't know. I don't know how long we're going to go with that, but it's pretty good. And the one after that, which is what date, Spug? Because I'm rubbish with dates.
It's the 9th of December.
Is Fisticuffs, which I think, if I remember correctly, is a green event. And yes. I know that it means that we don't do combat. We do only combat damage. In fact, no direct damage of any kind is allowed. So it's just a big punch-up. Please do check out the Dice Fight webpage. I'll put the link in the show notes because there, finally, you will find a completely up-to-date of the next month or even more events. And every time you want more details of the forthcoming event, the very next one, that will be in the the Dice Masters Discord in the hashtag dice-fight thing, whose name I can never remember, not thread. Channel.
Channel. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I've done, which is not quite Dice Fight related, but is Discord related, is somebody was asking on Discord about modern teams. I think there's been a little bit of an influx of new players, so welcome all. And they were asking about where they could find some information about modern teams. And as part of Dice Fight, we actually did. I mean, obviously, modern is now, how is it, 18 months old or more? This seems very old indeed, I think.
Yeah.
Since May 2020 or something. So we haven't done that many modern events, competitive modern events recently. But we did do a lot when it was fresh, and there were about 5 or 6 Dice Fight events. And for Dice Fight, because people have to submit teams as part of that, I've got those teams, archived away somewhere. So I've put them all together on a nice web page on the DM United website, together with the videos that I made with people like Ben and Peter and Patrick and Dana about the top meta teams. So you can find all of that information, a big list of the teams which have come top in the tournaments and my videos, and I'll put that link in the show notes too. So I've finally done something.
Well done, James. You should be commended. Thank you for giving us an update. So, yeah, obviously, Dice Fight is an online tournament that takes place starting at 9 p.m. UK time on Thursday evenings. If you want to get involved, then do seek out the Discord channel, which we will have a link to, I'm sure, in the show notes or on the website, but it shouldn't be very difficult to find if you want to get involved. So thanks to Rick and Danny for everything they've done to keep Dice Fight plugging away, because there's been a lot of people that have had a lot of fun through that event over the last couple of years or so. Good. Well, shall we move on to a bit of AOB? I think we've got, because we've had a bit of correspondence from a regular listener. This is in connection with something we talked about last time. Obviously, anybody who listened to the last episode will know that Peter was not here because he was laid low by a rogue tooth. Peter, we should have asked you, how are you now?
I'm doing better. So I had just had a root canal when we were supposed to record last time, and I had a lot of pain afterwards.
Right.
And so I was exhausted because I hadn't slept in days. And I was still in pain. And today I had stage 2 of the root canal, and I'm in considerably less pain than last time. So that's a good thing.
That's good.
So hopefully this won't bother me as much as that did. And I should be all right from now.
Very good. Well, let's hope it's the end of it. But one thing that maybe one of the crew, Ben, mischievously slightly suggested that we could maybe talk about which Dice Masters character would it be best to have a root canal with. Well, I think we've got the audio evidence if anybody wants to find it in the last episode. But Nick Weil, a friend of the pod, has been in touch, and he has said, "Hello, DM United crew, and salutations. I was listening to the recent episode of the podcast and would be very interested in which character would be best to have a root canal with. My recommendation would be Injection Fairy Lily. First, she rides around on a giant needle. I bet that has some sort of sedative to make sure you're out for the procedure. Secondly, it appears as if she is some sort of medical professional. Even if there were complications, she seems more than likely to have the skills to handle it than the average comic book character. Thus, she would be the perfect to take with you for a root canal. Hopefully she comes with a great bedside manner for post-op." Friend of the pod, Jackalope Spam, the Earl of Jank, and Quizmaster Extraordinaire. He's got quite a lot of titles there. So yes, thank you very much for being in touch, Nick. I think probably that would win the prize.
I don't like the idea of taking 2 damage to repair my tooth.
I had to take more than 2 damage.
I reckon Peter probably feels like he'd take a hell of a lot more. He was down to about 3 life, I think, when he by the end of that.
That's true.
So, Nick, thank you very, very much for being in touch. We think, yes, Injection Fairy Lily certainly sounds like a good idea. Well, that is all that we've got time for. That is the end of the show. If you've enjoyed it, we would love it if you would rate, review, subscribe using your favourite podcast app so that you can be the first to hear about a new episode. If you want to get in touch with to let us know your thoughts on anything we've discussed tonight, it would be great to hear from you. What is the best Dice Master set in your view? Do you agree with our vote for Tomb of Annihilation, or have you got a burning desire to crown something else the best set? Then do let us know. James, what is the email address that people should use?
Well, I must correct my previous statement regarding anything at DM United might not actually reach you if anyone's tried that. I did
where
try
they've
it
all
out.
gone.
Yeah, that's you wondering where the avalanche of emails have got to. They've disappeared into the ether on taking up my suggestion that Chocolate Teapot at DM United might work. It doesn't, as it turns out. However, if you write to hello@dmunited.eu, is that right? I think that'll be the one.
That is
that
correct.
will get to us. That will definitely get there.
Good. Well, if you want to be in touch, please use that email and not any of the others that James might have previously suggested. But it's been great to have you with us for this episode, and we will see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Fluffy birds!
Bye.
Bye-bye.